Joining us now, Michele Naff. I tell you what, Michele's been fighting this tariff battle with us for many, many years. She served on the board of directors of the American Jobs Alliance, of which I am the executive director. She's in D.C. today, and we're going to talk a little bit about tariffs and some of the work that she's doing. Michele, great to have you with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure, John. Great pleasure. I got here yesterday morning, so.
I know you're in the swamp with us in D.C., and from the days you served with us on the board of directors of the American Jobs Alliance, we appreciate that. I know you're meeting with congressmen today. You had a bunch of meetings set up, lobbying them, if you will, for lack of a better term, on a couple of the issues that you believe in strongly. Can you outline for us what your key priorities are?
Well, I'm actually here for the conference and flying for the Coalition for a Prosperous America, which is also a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. And our focus is on what helps to create American jobs by, new trade policies and tax policies, and of course the tariffs. We've had a big discussion about that. So those are the focus of our meetings today. We're going to be talking about the enormous trade deficit we've had for nearly 20 years and what countries are, creating that, mostly China. We had like 40% of our trade deficit is with China alone. And we're proposing reforms as far as, that goes, like, renegotiate NAFTA or get out of it if we can't renegotiate it, where it's going to be America first, because we've been taking the back seat, and our competitors, our other countries, are cheating in their trade policy with, currency manipulation and product dumping and government subsidies to their industries. So we have a not a level playing field. It's unfair for American companies, and we also see that we need to have additional tax reforms, because the current tax cuts don't take away the advantages of offshoring manufacturing, where we need to have more of a level playing field for taxes, so these multinational global corporations don't get away with, offshoring their manufacturing and transferring profits to other countries. And we have a proposal for a sales factor tax apportionment, where they'd have to pay taxes on the percentage of their overall business that's done in the U.S. So those are some of the things that we'll be talking about today. And I have 6 appointments today and another 6 tomorrow, and some Thursday morning before I leave to go back to San Diego, California.
Well, I tell you what, you're going to be happy to get out of here when it's all over and go back to San Diego. I'm jealous, I'll tell you that. We're with Michele Naff. She is a principal of CPA. It's the Coalition for a Prosperous America. And the Coalition for a Prosperous America is what they call themselves the nation's premier nonprofit organization, working at the intersection of trade, jobs, and economic growth. They're a bipartisan coalition of farmers and ranchers, manufacturers, and labor groups. We're working for a national strategy to eliminate the trade deficit, create good-paying jobs, and deliver broadly shared prosperity. So, look, as we've been arguing the steel tariffs, people have been telling me, well, tariffs are bad for the consumer. And it doesn't really matter that, $100,000 jobs in a particular sector. It's about lowering prices that affect everybody else. And, also I've heard people say, the trade deficit is just a red herring. It doesn't matter. It doesn't amount to a hill of beans. It simply means that we're buying goods cheaper than we can make them. So who cares? How do you respond to that?
Well, the fact of the matter is we can't defend our country if we don't have the suppliers for steel and aluminum. We've lost so many mills and plants making steel and aluminum in the last 18 years, and we now only have 2 major steel mills left, and it's the same kind of thing has happened to the aluminum industry. And the cost of material, I sell manufacturing services, ways to make mechanical parts. I represent companies called job shop fabrication companies, and the cost of material is only part of the cost. So, yes, there will be a little cost, but, say like a product that's, a can of a soda is going to maybe only go up by 3 or 4 cents because of the cost of the aluminum, with the tariffs and other products, that are steel. We have to have a steel industry to make the products for our defense industry. Too much of the business commercial-wise has gone offshore. And if we don't sustain our steel industry, we won't be able to build the tanks and all the other things that we need to defend our country. So it's really critical that we keep these industries alive. And yes, I represent metal fabricators, and they're going to maybe pay a little bit more for the material to make their parts, but it's not going to make it so that they're uncompetitive, because the material cost is only part of it. The labor costs and costs of doing business are also part of it. So usually material can be anywhere from, 20 to 30% of the cost of the goods. So it's not going to raise it like, 100% or 300% like some, people are talking about that don't know anything about how our parts are made.
So, Michele, the trade deficit itself, the people that say it doesn't matter, whether it's right now, it's what, like $600 billion our annual trade deficit. It's like an enormous number.
It's over 800, but it's nearly 550 or something like that for China alone. And we're transferring our wealth to other countries. The money, the trade deficit is also a drag on our gross domestic product to the tune of about 3 to 5%. But the actual trade deficit itself, if you add it up since the year 2000, it comes to nearly $12 trillion. That's money that could have been invested in our infrastructure and education. So we're transferring the wealth to China in particular, and it's allowed them to build up their military to where they have the most planes and ships than we do.
All right, so
that's the danger.
Okay, so we have an annual trade deficit of $550 billion with just China, $800 billion annually, and that's just money that it's cash, right? That goes from the United States to somewhere else. 550 of it going to China. So it's our money. It goes out. We buy their stuff. And the trade deficit, just so everybody knows, represents the difference between what we buy and what we sell, right?
Right.
So $550 billion in China means that we buy $550 billion worth of their goods more than they buy of ours. So when it's all said and done, they get $550 billion of our cash. And globally, everybody else gets another 300,000, right? Because our deficit's almost 850. So this is just money that's going out. Wouldn't it be better if that was even?
Yes, that's right. In fact, the latest statistics for 2017 is China now represents 47%, Mexico's mixed, Japan, and Germany. So those are our top 4 countries that we have a trade deficit with.
It's unbelievable. And the president putting these tariffs on them. And then they, everybody's saying, well, the Chinese or other countries, they're going to retaliate. How do you retaliate when you've already got a deficit in your favor of $850 billion? Any retaliation is going to affect that trade surplus that everybody else has. That's why when the president says, hey, I'm doing a battle I can't lose, I agree with him.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because, see, it isn't just the tariffs that we would be charging. They are already charging what's a tariff by another name called a value-added tax. And the average is 17% worldwide. Some countries have as low as 12%. Some countries have as high as 24%. But when our American companies export to these other countries, that country adds this value-added tax, which makes our products more expensive to be bought in that country. So they're getting away with these value-added taxes that are allowed under World Trade Organization rules. So, yes, we should be able to do it to retaliate against what they've been doing for the last 20-some years.
Right. They get away with it because it's not called a tariff or an import fee. Like I was giving the example the other day, Michele Naff, of the Coalition for a Prosperous America, CPA. I was given the example the other day that we try to sell a Buick into Germany right off the bat, right? Going to Germany right off the bat, there's a 17% value-added tax, all right? So it doesn't show up as a tariff, but it's 17%, which is And that's taxed on the value of the vehicle. So the way VAT tax is, it's taxed at the point of manufacture, not at the point of sale. So it's at the point of manufacture. So you get 17% there. Then they have an additional import tax, which is 10%. So people look at it and they say, okay, we have a 2.5% import tax. They have a 10% import tax, 7.5%. That's not really the end of the world. But it's not 10%. It's 27% to sell a Buick in Berlin, right? If that Buick is priced at $30,000, you got to add 27% right on top of that, which is almost $9,000 when it comes off the boat. So,
well, yeah, that's right. And there's 159 countries that charge a value-added tax, and we don't. So when Germany exports their BMWs to the United States, it's cheaper to buy a BMW in the United States than it is in Germany because we don't add a value-added tax to it.
Mm-hmm. Makes no sense. So that's why we have this enormous trade deficit. And, you know, the Republicans that you're going to be lobbying there, the traditional white paper, get the money from the donor, slave trade network, globalist Republicans, they don't even understand the issue that you're talking about. Why is Republican orthodoxy so opposed to imposing tariffs so that we can make trade fair?
Because the globalists have sort of taken over the mindset of what's taught in the colleges and economic departments, because it was Republicans that had tariffs. We had tariffs in this country till 1933. It was a major funding source for our government from when our country started until 1933. And then, you know, some economists blamed the high tariffs for causing the Depression when that wasn't the case. It was other factors. So the mindset became, oh, we got to have free trade. We don't have free trade. We have government-managed trade. We've really never had free trade. There's a difference between free trade and free markets. We want to have, you know, markets that are open, but right now we have trade agreements that are negotiated by governments. So it's really government-managed trade, but it's been managed to be, you know, to the benefit of our trading partners instead of to the benefit of America. And I discussed all these things in my new book, Rebuild Manufacturing, the Key to American Prosperity, and I'm giving a copy of my book to each one of the congressmen I'm meeting with while I'm here in town.
Well, do I get one? Am I going to get a book?
I would be happy to give you
all right.
one.
I definitely want one. I haven't had a chance to read it. I know your work is outstanding. Michele, we're out of time today. Thank you so much. I appreciate your being with us. And people want more information, Michele, where do they go?
Well, they can go to my website, savingusmanufacturing.com, both my books, because this is a sequel to my Can American Manufacturing Be Saved? We saved it, now we need to rebuild it.
Right. You got it. Well, I look forward to reading it. And thank you, Michele.